All right, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this conference. As you can see, the topic is quite heavy in this heavy day and heavy 2 days. So let's get a bit more heavier with talking about law. So you may ask, why a lawyer right now? Why are we talking about legal matters as we're talking about disrupting technology, etc., and fascinating discoveries? But we're talking about law because it matters, as it is on the title, but also as that will show you in this presentation. So just a few words, just in order to introduce the topic of space law and law in space, which are quite two different ideas. Of course, you have space law, which is basically all the treaties that maybe you heard about it, 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which is basically the core of the international space law, and also all the regulation arising from space agencies, from governmental authorities, the space statutes. For instance, if you live in the US, in Luxembourg, in France, you have national space statutes for space activities, and all over that. As a company, even if you are a public entity, you have to comply with other laws, which can be corporate law, which can be commercial law, which can be human resources related law, employment law, social law, etc. If you are doing public procurement, you also have to comply with some general laws. So you, as a space actor, you are like this guy in the middle, wandering wherever you are. You have some laws arising from the core principle of space law, because you are launching object, because you are dealing with space data, because you are exporting dual use material. So you have this side of the law that you need to apply, and also because you're a corporation, because you have shareholders, because you want to bid in a public auction, you need to comply with the general law. So that's basically the two sphere, and you guys are in the middle, and that's why it's important for you to have this dual vision of what's going on here. As I said, you have some issues in your business that are really because you're a business. You need to secure your relation with your supplier and clients. You need to find your corporate shell, what type of corporation you're going to be. You need also to manage the taxes, very important, very crucial at any time of the life of your company. You need to manage your human resources. We're going to see in a few minutes why in 2021 this is also very important. And then, because life is life, sometimes you need to prevent disputes and maybe handle them if they eventually occur. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned, if you are working with a big international institution like ESA, you need also to secure your participation to a public tender. You don't want to be eliminated because you violated some regulations. So that's something you need to be very careful about. Also, on the other side, as I mentioned, and related to the previous diagram, you have other issues that are really sector specific. Spectrum resources, orbital position, everything related to protecting your innovation. It can be patent, it can be also just IP, trademarks, everything related to the data that you are handling, securing your exports, of course, especially since we are working in a dual use environment, and also a more recent, but at least as important as securing export, of course, ensuring sustainability of your activities. I'm talking about space debris. That's the number one issue in this regard. The challenges, they remain quite standard despite 2020 and the current COVID crisis. The outer space is no longer a monopoly. We used to have, long story short, in the 60s, it was a Cold War environment, two big powers. There was no possibility, not even an idea of private companies going into space. So everything changed since the new space is arising. Now you have a lot of private companies coming up, SpaceX, of course, but other major corporations. So now, as the outer space is getting more privatized, the law is also changing. You have a lot of contracts that are putting in places, even for at the most important level. I'm just mentioning, for instance, the Artemis Accord. It was not a treaty; it is actually an agreement, and the challenges remain. Debris are getting more and more warning, and also the mega constellation. I'm thinking about the LEO orbit. Yesterday, during the panel for the space community, some expert was mentioning the issue of the LEO and the regulation of access. That remain a big challenge, especially for the legal services. Regarding the trends, basically you have two types of services, one directed to Earth and one directed to outer space. Despite 2020, they remain the same. There is the same attraction and interest for this type of segments. Of course, communication that used to be very big, that is still very big, but now there is a lot of competition from the other side, which is Earth observation and remote sensing. Used to be quite specialized for weather forecast or sovereign activities. Now it's getting more and more privatized also. Big also sector tracking IoT data. We see a lot of startup in this Paris Space Week working on this very segment. So that's very big. Also, as a lawyer, we see a lot of companies that are space company, but they actually don't have any bird out there. They just have they just deal with space data. So that's the trend right now. And also application for outer space. The big one is, of course, right now from a legal standpoint, resources, which is pretty much of a gray area. So that is, in a few minutes, the background regarding space law and the current challenges. Moving from a basically international law system with two big superpowers to an international marketplace with a multi-jurisdictional approach. So that's basically the switch we are attending right now. In 2020, the world changed. We have as a lawyer, we saw three types of issues. The first one is industrial, a lot of delays. We saw a lot of force majeure. Force majeure is often, especially in Anglo-Saxon jurisdiction, referred as act of God. COVID, was it foreseeable? Some people can say it was foreseeable, but was it really foreseeable in this range of damages? Maybe not. You have a lot of shortages for supply, especially in the microchips segment. So this is the first part, industrial issue. Second part is management issue. A lot of people had to stay home because of national orders and because of health safety. So you had to organize remote working. Also, if you were expecting to hire people from foreign countries, the borders are for a lot of countries still closed, or at least highly controlled. And if you had for Europe Brexit, that's a huge pack of issues to deal with regarding to border control. And also, last but not least, lockdown. This is more a 2020 issue, but it had a lot of impact because I think every major country in this world had to face pure lockdown. So that impacted the supply chain and also your clients' services. And lastly, governmental issue. You had a lot of regulation that has been either temporarily or still in force and that are actually modifying the current legal framework. For instance, in France, the contract law has been a little bit amended for a few months. That created some delays and some changes that are exceptional. But that needs to be taken into account, and that is a major governmental issue because of this 2020 COVID crisis. So right now, what's going to be 2021? It's a little bit catchy, but that's true. 2021 is going to be the year of the contract. So why? Why is it going to be the year of the contract? Because basically all the contract you guys as a company has been negotiated. They've been negotiated pre-COVID-19. You experience, I hope not too much, but you at least experience some delays, some shortages. Maybe your milestone in some contract has been renegotiated, like just on the field. You had no time, just needed to react on what's going on. The deadlines maybe have not been really respected, or they are scheduled not to be respected. Maybe for some of you, some provision in your contract regarding damages, either they can be constructive or punitive, whatever, but may have been triggered. And also you may be worried for your own financial stability, or maybe for your business partner. Maybe one of your clients, you're not really sure if it's going to be able to pay, or if it's going to be able to deliver the product. So basically, long story short, it's going to be the year of the contract because the legal risk has dramatically increased. In a nutshell, uncertainty intensifies. We are already working in an industry where uncertainty is basically the key word. With COVID, well, it's added an extra layer of uncertainty. So how to tackle this? What can you guys do in order to mitigate this risk? 3 big actions: contract auditing, agency and industry leaders plan following up, and also tracking of the governmental stimulus and measures. The contract auditing, of course, you expect that we're going to talk about that more deeply in a few minutes. But for the two other components, if you're working with ESA or with other international agency, you may have noticed, or of course you may benefit already right now, they organize some plans, especially regarding SMEs, in order to maybe organize in some cases advance payment, or maybe to modify some milestone or some deadline in some cases. So that is something very important, because I mean these clients are very important, they are very big, and as they have some sort of global responsibility, they already took the lead and organized some sort of emergency plan in order for especially for their suppliers as SMEs to survive and to sustain during this crisis. Also, and whatever the size of your company, be careful about everything related to governmental stimulus and supporting measures. Every government in the planet, they have decided to pass stimulus aid. For instance, if you take the French jurisdiction, the government specifically announced a stimulus package for the space industry. And a very important point is that it's not dependent of the nationality of your company. You can be a US, a UK, a German company. As long as you invest in France and in the space industry, you may be eligible to benefit from this stimulus package. So that's something you need to be aware of. Feel free just to go outside and look what's going on from the agencies and also from the governments. But to go back to the first point, contract auditing, that is something that can be done as soon as possible. What is basically this idea? How do we work for this? Basically, we review all your contract. Every contract is important. Supplier, clients, of course, but also employment contract. It can be also your lease. Everything is important, because you need to assess your risk right now because of this new trend, because of this new crisis that now is for a long time. Based on this comprehensive review of the contracts, we are drafting an analysis of your current contractual policy that may date back from before COVID-19. So we just try to understand what was your policy back in the days, and based on this diagnosis, we try to implement a new strategy, or at least to update this current strategy in order for it to tackle more the new issues that you can face with the COVID-19. And then, based on all this preliminary work, we can, if you want to, we can go help you negotiate or renegotiate the contract that you can have, and that may be a little bit tricky because of the new conditions. We can prep you for that. We can assist you for that. We can do that for you. So we can make a tailored offer for you, thanks to this audit of the contract. And also, when everything is done, we can monitor for you the application and the enforcement of the contract, because contract, especially in the space industries, can be a multi-year duration. So that's something that needs to be followed up on the long term. Just a few maybe takeaways regarding two big type of contract for you. Suppliers contract, of course, they have been deeply impacted for some part by this current crisis, especially if you are, I was quoting the microchip segment earlier on the presentation. This you need to expect. I mean, you have to expect delays. Of course, delays for launchings also, that can be dramatic, because I mean, once you miss the slot, I mean, it's done for you, and you need to wait a while. So that's something very important that you have to keep in mind. Basically, in the supplier contract, but what is the main key point that we are tracking in your contract? First, the competition. What is the competition? Do you have some non-compete? Did you manage to have an exclusivity? Is it still relevant right now for you guys to have an exclusivity because of this new COVID-19 context? What about the IP right? Are you really safe about the IP right? Also, second block is everything related to the agenda, which is, as you imagine, 100% urgent to analyze right now. What about the payment plan? When do you have to pay, and how do you have to pay? Everything related to the delivery. How's the delivery gonna be organized? If there is an impact right now because of COVID, can we modify the condition of the delivery? The same for delays. If we already are experiencing delays, do we need to take this into account? Do we need to redraft the contract because of it? And then delivery, of course, does the new condition affecting the testing and the acceptance of the product that you bought? And then lastly, for clients, basically the same idea on the 3 blocks logic. First, you have to evaluate the revenue. Is it okay for you regarding the revenue? What about the duration? What about the exit clause? What about the financing clauses? Also regarding your liability, of course, is pandemic considered as a force majeure? What about the liability? And also regarding the quality for your clients to review your performance indicators and also the penalty scheme that may apply to you, especially in this case of crisis where you're not maybe sure of your own subcontractor. So that's something that needs to be also fine-tuned and analyzed a second time. Just a few words. I hope I'm not out of schedule. A few words about me and what I do. So I'm an attorney at law. I'm specialized in the space industry and technology industries. What I can do is, of course, contract negotiation and audits. I can help you also with space regulations, everything related to telecommunication also, and more globally, practice with commercial law and assist you with your litigation. This expertise is global, but I'm based in Paris. Feel free to contact me, and if you have any question, let me know in the chat or contact me. If you want to have my full contact details, feel free just to use your phone and to scan the QR code on your screen.